Hey, it's me, Tim, and I've got a little bit of a series for you on this new custom bass that I just designed and made for a bassist named Jay Levine. I'm calling it a signature bass because he's got some specific things that he wanted to do, and so we did them. And of course, as is the nature of making something that doesn't exist, that means there's a lot of experimenting and trying new things, which I did in the process of this, which I love to do, and that also means I make a bunch of mistakes. So I'm going to share all of that with you. We ended up making two basses because that's sort of the way I go now when I make one that's I haven't made before. I tend to make a prototype to make mistakes on and stuff, and boy did I make mistakes. So without further ado, let's jump in. And just this first part is going to be sort of a short part, just focusing on the fingerboard, explaining some of the math of the instrument, and it's also going to show some of the techniques that I was using on my CNC router that I had to learn. So let's jump in. Okay, I'll take advantage of this roughing in the wood that I'm using montage to tell you about the instrument that I'm building. So it's for a bass player from my neighboring state of New York that wants a modern 5-string bass, something that has like that modern sounded edge and stuff, but what he really likes is his old vintage P bass, and he likes the dimensions of the neck. It's kind of a thicker neck, and it's like a bit of a wider nut. He wants that, but he wants that math applied to 5 strings instead of 4. So typically a 5-string bass will have a wider nut than a 4-string bass, of course, because it's fitting the 5th in, but the spacing between the strings will be a little bit tighter than the spacing on a 4-string. So they kind of try to squeeze it all in just a little bit more so it doesn't get too big. He wants it, quote, too big or bigger, so he wants the true spacing of like a vintage P bass across 5 strings. So that makes the nut well over 2 inches wide. I could have just grabbed my skill saw, but sometimes it's good to remember how good we have it. So he wants the bass to be a neck through, which I like to do as a full one piece instead of like a glued in neck. I feel like a true neck through is kind of built like this, where that whole center core is all just part of the instrument. And we're using maple, because it grows local, this lightweight, it's a great guitar wood for the bulk of it, as well as some other local wood. Walnut right here. This is all trees that grew in my neighborhood, all like literally within a 10-mile radius of my workshop. Local, sawyers cut these trees down and mill them and stuff. I try to keep it, green. If it's not reclaimed, I keep it local. And there's all these great local woods that grow near me, so I use them. If I lived in Brazil, I'd use all those great local hardwoods, but getting them imported here seems a little bit ridiculous. So now that we have most of this wood prepped and ready, let me jump over to the computer and I'll show you the basic design and plan and what this thin walnut's going to be for. So here you can see it's this true one piece, two-sided carve that I do in my Vectric software, but you'll notice on the top that there is this sort of internal line about a ½ inch away from the edge, and that is going to be an inlay. So Vectric does this inlay toolpath with their new version of the software. You used to have to do some fancy math yourself, but now they created this toolpath you can see I'm developing here that figures it all out for you so you can create inlaid wood. And the difference is, like, if you just cut a piece of wood and put it in, there's like an edge. And so the basic thing that happens is this edge is cut with a V-bit, so it has an angle. So when you set it into the hole, there won't be like a gap or a glue line. It'll sort of blend itself in. And then that way, if you cut in a little bit, and clean up the top, or you have to go a little further than you wanted to, you won't see any unsightly glue line. That's the theory, at least. And so there you see that's the plug that I'm going to put into the hole that I cut on the instrument with that slight chamfer, and it's all mathematically tuned by making some selections in this input here on the program. Now this is my first time using it, and so it's pretty intuitive, but there's still some stuff to learn, which we'll see in this video series. Well, mostly in the next video, because this video I kind of got everything right first try. We're going to make all these cuts I'm showing now later. First, I wanted to start with the fingerboard, and so I wanted to do just traditional block inlays, which is what the client wanted, and I wanted to do the matching, walnut inlay on it. So here you can see I'm cutting the plug out of a piece of walnut, and then I'm cutting the holes into the fingerboard. And I decided to do it as one piece like that to just help me line it all up instead of fumbling around with all these little pieces of walnut. This made the most sense as the place to start because the least amount of wood could get wrecked if I really screwed up. So here I made the cuts. Again, I was basically kind of guessing at what math was going to work right, and I got kind of lucky on this one that it all worked out pretty good for the size and scale of the pockets I was making. But so there you can see doing a little test fit, then I just glue it all in, let it sit overnight on the CNC router, and then I can clear off all that excess walnut and then continue to make my fingerboard in the morning. Through the magic of editing, it is morning. The wood is all glued up and dry, and so here you can see I'm just cutting off all that excess wood, which I didn't glue it outside of the holes. And then there in the very first fret, you saw I was kind of poking. There was a little bit warbly there, and I was like, uh-oh, this isn't going to work. I really screwed it up. But then the rest of them came out good, and it was just that there was some kind of imperfection or something in that wood there, which I was able to repair with some glue without having to redo that one. So then once I had the inlays in, I thought they looked really cool, and they kind of get a little bit of a shape to them from the radius of the fingerboard. That's some black CA glue I used in that one troublesome one. It cleans up nicer. You'll see it later. Then I went and I just did the rest of the fingerboard, and it all is pretty much business as usual. This is the mini center square from squaretools.com. I made a smaller version of the larger one, which is available there for about half the price of the larger one. And it's really good for doing small things like this. It's small enough to where I can actually get the width of the fingerboard, like the thickness of it, and then I can measure from the fret lines and find the center between them, even on the smallest frets, like the 24th fret on this instrument and stuff. And the other center square is just a little bit too big to do that. So this is a very handy tool if you find yourself doing this type of work. Lately I've been using the center post of the aluminum rivets that I use to assemble the squares as my side markers. They're 1/16 inch thick piece of aluminum, and so I can hit them with woodworking tools without worrying about it. And they contrast nicely with the wood. It's just a nice way to find some use for waste. Waste not, want not. Even with all my robots, I still have to do my fair share of sanding and hand work, but it's okay. And I got this all prepped up, put some finish on it, which I always do before I put frets in. And I also made another fingerboard because I ended up making 2 of these bases, and you can see this one I did an epoxy inlay fill. You guys know I don't take money from the man, but I want to talk real quick about these 2 companies, Avid CNC and Vectric Software. As I show these types of sort of CNC videos, I figure I should tell you what I'm using. And these are companies that I have relationships with that I absolutely love, but all those obligations have been fulfilled for years, and I'm just here telling you how much I love them without getting paid to do it, because they don't owe me anything. Anything I owe them. I'm not even going to tell them I'm doing this. But if you're looking to get into CNC routing, Vectric Software is this great company out in the UK. It's a small company. It's actually employee-owned now, which is really cool. And they've been doing this stuff for, I think, 25 years of developing the CNC software designed for woodworking, like CAD experiences and woodworking routers. So it's not overly complicated like some of the software is out there that does all these things that people with CNC routers don't need to worry about. And then the Avid CNC, this is a great West Coast American company, small company that are making incredible machines. You build them yourself, so it saves you a lot of money, and they're also versatile and expandable. I can't really imagine ever needing any more than what they provide, because I can just take this machine that I have here and I can literally grow it almost infinitely by adding on to it. I can make the thing 100 feet long. It's a really cool product, great company, great price point, great to work with, great people, and no one's paying me to say that. So that's what I'm using to do all this stuff. I get asked a lot by people recommending CNCs and software and stuff, and it's always those 2, although I understand if you're looking to just get into CNC, I still recommend the Vectric Software, but there might be if you wanted to start with a smaller, less expensive machine, I understand why before jumping into a professional grade machine. I had other machines first too, but if you're ready to go professional, that's the way to go. And here, what I decided to do with this other base that I'm making, sort of this, well, you'll see in the next video, it's because I made some mistakes. I thought I'd go fretless with it and do an epoxy fingerboard. So I cut the fret slots in it and I just filled it all in with epoxy, so you have some kind of cheater lines and stuff. So that was what's going on with that fingerboard, and then this one I'm just, pressing the frets in. All right, I'm going to stop this one here because I want to get into some of the problems that I had in the process, and they're all just my mistakes, of developing this. And I'm going to show you for the next video the second one, which is the one that I had to kind of solve some problems for, and it's going to eventually be up in my store. And then we'll jump into the final finished product of this beautiful custom instrument I made for this guy Jay. So stay tuned. See you in the next 2.